The final and most effective layer of protection for the orchestrators of the COVID response lies in the phenomenon of collective complicity, described as being cemented in COVID blood. This concept refers to the process by which large numbers of individuals across government, institutions, corporations, and society became bound together through their participation in policies that produced widespread, documented harm. The blood in this metaphor is literal: the suffering, injuries, and deaths that resulted from mandates, coercive protocols, and medical interventions. Once so many people in positions of authority and influence took part in the response, the pursuit of accountability against the primary planners became extraordinarily difficult, as any serious investigation threatened to expose the complicity of the broader network. This cemented bond functions as the ultimate immunity, more powerful than statutes or court precedents because it operates through mutual self-preservation. The orchestrators of the COVID pandemic, whether viewed as a planned operation or a negligently executed response, deliberately structured the enterprise to draw in participants at every level. Through hierarchical control mechanisms, legislative immunities, judicial precedents, and institutional pressure, they compelled subordinates to enforce mandates, administer interventions, and suppress dissent. Public officials issued orders, health administrators disseminated guidance, corporate leaders tied employment to compliance, school officials enforced restrictions on children, and law enforcement personnel carried out coercive measures. Each participant, from the highest federal levels to local enforcement, became linked through actions that produced foreseeable harm. The public and documented nature of this participation, through statements, signed orders, enforcement actions, and institutional coordination, made the shared responsibility visible and difficult to deny. The result is a contemporary form of being cemented in blood, a collective understanding that pursuing one major actor risks implicating many others who occupied similar roles. This dynamic creates a profound civilizational governance problem. The very individuals and institutions charged with protecting society from harm instead became active participants in the policies that caused it. The pre-planning of both the operational response and the legal shields that would protect it further reinforced the bond of complicity. Participants understood that the architecture of immunity was designed to shield the entire enterprise. The crimes, designated as COVID treason through unconstitutional power centralization, COVID murder through foreseeable deaths and injuries, and COVID child abuse through medical and coercive interventions on minors, became protected not merely by law but by the shared human cost that bound the participants together. This cemented state explains the widespread institutional reluctance to investigate or prosecute despite extensive documentation. The orchestrators and the strategic creation of collective guilt. The planners and orchestrators of the COVID response installed multiple layers of legal and institutional protection while simultaneously drawing large numbers of people into active participation. Through legislative measures, emergency powers expansions, and judicial precedents developed over decades, they created an environment in which subordinates could be compelled to carry out policies with reduced fear of personal liability. Hierarchical control mechanisms, from federal guidance to state implementation to local enforcement, ensured that responsibility flowed downward while protection flowed upward. Public and private entities, including pharmaceutical companies, media organizations, hospitals, schools, and charitable institutions, were integrated into the operation through various forms of pressure, incentives, and institutional alignment. This deliberate involvement transformed unwitting or compliant participants into active contributors to the crimes. The concept of being cemented in COVID blood captures the moral and practical reality that emerges from such widespread participation. Once individuals at every level had enforced mandates, administered interventions, suppressed dissent, or benefited from the response, they acquired a personal stake in maintaining the narrative of legitimacy. Admitting the criminal nature of the policies would require acknowledging their own role in the harm inflicted on citizens, including children. This collective guilt creates a powerful psychological and institutional barrier to accountability. The orchestrators understood this dynamic and leveraged it, ensuring that the response would entangle enough people in positions of influence to make systematic prosecution nearly impossible. The blood, the real human suffering caused by the policies, became the cement that held the structure of impunity together. This mechanism extends beyond the COVID response into interconnected networks of power. The same individuals and institutions involved in the pandemic policies often participated in related events through shared personnel, funding streams, and coordination mechanisms. The cemented bond of complicity, therefore, protects not only the COVID crimes but the broader ecosystem of activity. The reluctance to prosecute stems from the recognition that holding one prominent figure accountable could trigger a cascade that exposes the full network. The orchestrators achieved a form of ultimate protection by making the crimes a collective endeavor, ensuring that the system would defend itself through inaction. Psychological and societal dimensions of complicity. The cemented state produces significant psychological effects that reinforce institutional silence. Many participants engaged in various forms of denial, rationalization, or displacement of reality to avoid confronting their role in the harms inflicted. Terms such as mass psychosis, collective delusion, and self-preservation describe the mechanisms through which individuals and institutions avoid acknowledging that they were manipulated into participating in radical evil. The fear of admitting error, the reluctance to accept having been duped, and the psychological cost of recognizing one's involvement in policies that harmed innocent children all contribute to the collective refusal to pursue justice. This self-preservation instinct operates at both individual and institutional levels, creating a powerful cultural and bureaucratic inertia against accountability. The public and documented nature of the participation intensifies this dynamic. Because so many actions were carried out openly, through press conferences, signed orders, enforcement actions, and institutional policies, the record is difficult to deny once scrutiny begins. This visibility makes the bond of complicity even stronger, as participants understand that the evidence exists to implicate many if the process starts. The orchestrators exploited this reality, ensuring that the response would involve enough people across all levels of power to make collective silence the default position. The crimes, cemented in COVID blood, become protected by the very scale of participation they required. The governance problem this creates is profound. The individuals and institutions responsible for protecting society from harm instead became active agents in causing it. Law enforcement and judicial actors who enforced or failed to check the measures became part of the system. Private entities that profited from or enabled the response added another layer of entanglement. The result is a societal stalemate in which no one in power has a strong incentive to pursue accountability, because doing so risks implicating themselves or their allies. This dynamic extends to interconnected criminal networks beyond the COVID response, making the removal of COVID criminals a necessary first step toward broader reform. The path to breaking the bond of complicity. The solution requires a deliberate strategy of identification, naming, and removal of COVID criminals through legal and electoral means. The most documented public figures, those whose statements, votes, policies, and actions are recorded in the public record, must be prioritized. The term COVID criminal serves as a protected rhetorical designation that highlights their role and creates public awareness without requiring immediate criminal conviction. Electoral removal, through voting out incumbents and supporting candidates committed to accountability, provides one essential mechanism. Legal procedures, including local prosecutions anchored in specific victims, provide another. The replacement process must be vigilant. New officials must be scrutinized to ensure they are not merely extensions of the previous network or participants in interconnected criminal activities. The goal is to create openings for genuine reform by installing individuals willing to utilize existing legal frameworks or support new interpretations that pierce the immunity shielding malum in se offenses. This includes pursuing the full range of COVID crimes and related offenses committed during the pandemic. The process is necessarily gradual but creates openings for genuine accountability. The ultimate objective is to restore constitutional order by holding COVID criminals responsible for their actions. The punishment frameworks, including reciprocal measures that mirror the harms inflicted, serve as conceptual models for justice. The local jurisdictional pathway, combined with systematic identification and removal, offers a practical route to begin this work. By confronting the reality of collective complicity cemented in COVID blood, society can move from paralysis to purposeful action. The public record stands ready. The only remaining requirement is the collective will to act upon it. Conclusion. Collective complicity blocks justice. The concept of being cemented in COVID blood explains the widespread institutional reluctance to pursue accountability for the crimes of the pandemic response. The broad participation across public and private spheres created a mutual vulnerability that discourages internal reckoning. This collective complicity protects the offenses of COVID treason, COVID murder, and COVID child abuse by making prosecution risky for those in power. The pre-planned immunities and legal shields reinforce this dynamic, transforming potential justice into a shared interest in silence. The solution lies in deliberate, sustained action to identify, name, and remove COVID criminals through electoral and legal means. Starting with the most documented public figures creates momentum and openings for broader accountability. The local jurisdictional pathway, anchored in specific victims, provides a practical mechanism to challenge immunities and establish precedent. This process is necessarily gradual but essential for breaking the bond of complicity cemented in COVID blood. Ultimately, confronting crime cemented in blood requires societal resolve to prioritize justice over collective self-protection. The imprescriptible nature of the offenses and the self-evident public record provide the foundation. By systematically removing COVID criminals and replacing them with individuals committed to accountability, society can restore constitutional order and ensure that radical evil does not escape consequences through the very structures designed to enable it. The path exists. The choice to follow it remains a defining test of governance and moral courage.